course, when we have somebody on for the first time, they have to get an elaborate intro. So, hailing from Houston, Texas, I don't know where Gia's from. I think it's Houston. Oh no,
Richmond.
of course. My wonderful guest here is a teacher that works, I guess we work together, not at the same school, but we always come in contact when it's time to do these training days, PD for my teachers out there, you know what that is. And so I go, gee, I got to have you on the show. You have an amazing story. And so she is here today. So I present the Gia Eason. Say hello to the people.
Hi, y'all. Happy to be here. Excited to talk.
So as I'm putting the show together and, we're talking, whenever I'm talking to somebody, there's always like an interview in my mind that's happening. Like, oh man, that's interesting. I wish I could ask more questions about that. And so I had so many more things I wanted to ask Gia about, and I thought it would be a great conversation to invite other people in on because I think that the stuff that she'll share will be valuable to other people. So, first number here is 3.5 years, which is the average length of an NFL career. Now, you may be looking at this like, I don't know, I don't think Gia played in the NFL. You will be correct. Her father did. So I wanted to ask, how did this make a difference in life? I know that you may have not been around like while he was playing. I know sometimes people are kids when their dads are playing and they retire before they even really know that the NFL was like this big deal. So talk about that experience for you.
Okay. First, let me say I was going to let you make it when you said I was from Houston. And everyone's like, when you're from Richmond, it's the same thing. But I'm like, well, if people start asking me about Houston stuff, I don't know. So that's why I always say I am from Richmond. But to answer your question, having a dad in the NFL, I don't think I really realized that my life was different. And for a long time, I didn't even realize he played in the NFL. I thought my
Mm.
dad's job was to be on TV. And the reason for that, there was a show called New York Undercover or something, and there was a man on there that looked a lot like my dad. So I literally thought like on Sundays he plays on this channel and he plays football, and then sometimes he's on this channel and he's this cop. And
Wow.
like I literally thought that was his job for a while. But it was different. I have a different recollection than my younger brother and sister because I feel like they are the kids that really didn't. I don't think they really realized what was going on. Whereas, like, I have full and complete memories of all of the stuff that we did.
Wow.
But it's like some of the things that were normal for me after he got out of the league. That's when I realized, oh, the stuff that was happening in my life, this is not happening in everybody else's life. Like that was not normal stuff. Like having, meeting celebrities. Celebrities were not celebrities to me because you would just be at a random event or whatever, and they were just there, and they're there with their family and their kids. So
Right.
it's like, I think that's helped me just growing up like that because I don't get really starstruck by people. I don't, I feel like a person is a person. So I think it helped me there. It also, I think put me, even though it gave me some opportunities to have some things that a lot of kids didn't have and live a life that a lot of kids my age didn't live. Like we traveled a lot. We were always on family trips and stuff when my dad wasn't in season. There were some definite things that I had to deal with that other kids didn't have to deal with. Like when it was in season, I felt like I just saw my mom.
Mm-hmm.
My mom did everything with us. And then when my dad was off season, he would do stuff with us and he would be doing my hair and taking me to school and doing all this stuff. But it was just like stretches of time where I just remember it being us and my mom. And I would like see my dad, but like not really like be doing stuff with him. And it would be because they'd be footballing all day long, hours and hours and hours, or away at camp. And so I might just see him sleep, but wouldn't really interact with him. So I think that like really impacted me. I definitely saw what hard work looked like. I felt like I really got a lot from him with that. And with what you said, average football career being 3.5 years, my dad's was almost 10. And I saw him play for three different teams. So it definitely impacted me. Like he started off for the Cowboys, but when we moved up to Illinois when he was playing for the Bears, my life changed a lot. That's when I was at a school with kids that did not look like me. Um, so that definitely had its impacts. And, just not fitting in. I didn't look like the kids in my school, but at the same time, my parents would like take us to the hood to go to church because they wanted us to be with people that looked like us. But those kids hated me because of all the
Mm.
stuff I had. It was interesting. It was an interesting time. So, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I feel like I have a lot of good memories and good experiences that have like molded who I am as an adult. So I'm thankful for the opportunities that came to him, and I just got to reap benefits.
Did you ever think, like, can we just stay in one place? I mean, how long were the stretches of him being in one team and then moving to the next team and then I guess the last team?
Okay, so yeah, my parents and I were in school together. We grew up together, but while my dad was transitioning through the phases of being in the NFL, I was there for that. So it's like in the beginning when we were like, oh, we're starting to have like money, all of that. We were in different apartments. And my parents would tell me when we would move from one apartment and like upgrade to the next apartment and we upgrade to a house. It was just like, oh, you're going to a new school, you're going to make new friends, it's a fresh start. And I noticed as an adult, anytime that I'm making a large life transition, I don't do well with like keeping up with the people that I left behind. And I think that's mainly because as a kid, I heard a lot. It's a fresh start. You're going to make new friends. You're going to have new opportunities. And so I had to learn really after the pandemic or through the pandemic is when I really started like thinking about stuff, to really just focus on pouring into my relationships and giving effort to my relationships. I've never been a person who does good with keeping in contact with people. I don't sit on the phone, all of that. But I noticed that the people who try to love me and, pour into my cup, that's things that they do. So I engage in those things that I would not have engaged in before. I very much through my childhood became very like self-sustaining. And I think that was, hearing things like that, but also feeling like I don't fit in. I went to a school where there were four Black kids other than me that I remember. It was hundreds of
In the
kids in the
whole
school.
school?
Yes.
Wow.
I remember that when I was like in probably third grade, there was a little Black girl in kindergarten. There was two Black kids in my grade, and then one Black girl I remember in the grade above me. I do not remember any other Black children. And it was like I was at some of the best schools because this is what my parents could afford, but not being at a school where you don't fit in, being at a school where people are not going to have a crush on you. People might have an issue with you having a crush on them. People's parents, your friends' parents may not want them to come spend the night at your house. That was stuff that I had to deal with. And on top of that, my parents tried to like counter everything that I was experiencing. So they would take us to like the hood in Waukegan to go to church, so that we could be around kids that look like us. But at the same time, even though they looked like us, they didn't share our experiences. So I got bullied because of stuff that I had. Like I remember one day at church, this little girl, like my mom had just gotten me this American Girl doll. This girl came out of nowhere. I don't even know her. I don't know that I saw her any days after that day, but she just came and tried to take my doll. And I was like, what? And she just was like, give me your doll. And I was like, no. And she
What?
slapped me like where it was fingerprints on my face. And it was like, these were my childhood experiences. So it's like, there were some great things that came from the NFL, but it was also some things where I felt like, my life wasn't normal. It wasn't normal. So all of it grew me. But it wasn't. I think a lot of times when people hear that, they're like, "Oh, you lived a good life. You did." There was some great, like my life was good, but it wasn't all like wonderful because there were some things that
Right.
stung. Absolutely.
Dang, so you go from meeting celebrities to getting slapped by a kid at church because they were basically jealous of the things that you had and that they weren't able to have those things, to then also going to school and being racially profiled as a third grader. Dang. How do you think those things affected you um, as you got into not adulthood, but middle school, teenage years?
It was so okay. So in seventh grade, that's when my dad said he was gonna leave the league because there was a new guy that had come. His name was Brian Urlacher. That's the person that took my dad's spot.
Oh, he's
And
good.
yeah, and my dad was gonna like leave because he had gotten injured at that time, and he was like, "I'm done." The crazy thing is, like, as soon as we like at that time, my mom was like, "Let's just go back to Texas." Like my kids, I don't want my kids growing up and they don't have real friendships or they will never be able to date. Like, let's just go back home. Okay. So we agreed. The funny thing is, once we got down here, my dad, like the Browns called him. He went for like 7 months. He was like, "No, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore." But when I got here, like my mom was asking us before we made the decision because we were literally like in the process of building a big house. Like it had like this lake. I remember like there was this zip line and they were trying to like coach us up. They were like, you can come play out here. This is y'all's lake. And she asked us, do we want to move to Texas? And she pretty much talked to us about what that would mean for us. Like you will be able to find people who look like you, people who want to date you. And I'm in sixth grade while she's talking to me. Of course, my siblings, they don't know what's going on, but I had already had all the bad experiences. So I'm like, yes, absolutely. When we leaving? So that was how the decision was made. She was like, I don't want my kids to not have normal childhood experiences because of our lifestyle. And so we came back to Texas. I'm enrolled in school, seventh grade. The first thing I'm hearing, why you talk white? People were calling me
Ugh,
Oreo. The crazy thing is when I lived in Illinois, because of the people who were around me, people I'm listening to on the radio and getting CDs for, like Spice Girls, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, those were the people I was listening to. When I came here, I had to act like I didn't know who Britney Spears was because
wow.
here my friends were listening to Zero. They were listening to all kinds of things I never even heard of. So I'm just like, let me try to fit in.
Oh, man.
On top of that, as soon as I got here, my first it was a hard transition. It was a hard transition. I had the transition of like now I'm around a lot of people, but I have to learn how to fit in with these people because I've never thought it was a such thing as talking white. Like my mom being an English teacher, my grandmother being an English teacher, I've always spoken properly. I feel like
Yeah.
now I use the most slang as an adult as I have over my whole life. But growing up, I'm like, what is talking white? Like that was my first time hearing that. But it was just like that transition, moving again, I'm starting fresh. But also, this is outside of this, but this was something that also like made the transition really hard. My first boyfriend, I he was my boyfriend in Chicago. I got down here, and as everyone knows, Chicago is violent. Okay. Um, and one day my grandmother, who lived in Chicago still at that point, she called and my boyfriend and his cousin were missing and they had suffered like from gun violence, like he passed away. And so it's like I moved here, I'm trying to fit in, and now I'm trying not to be like the sad girl at school. Cause that to me, that wasn't something that these people down here could relate to. Like I lost my first boyfriend to gun violence. Well, how you say that in a new like, hi, I'm Gia, this is happening. So I just like literally processed that during the pandemic. During the pandemic, because my parents were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like I remember telling them that, and really, it's like, "How could I be okay?" But I definitely said that. But I just wanted to just fit in. I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want to be called Oreo. I did not want to be sad at school, so I was just like act like none of the stuff happened. And whatever other kids was doing, that's what I was trying to do because I just wanted to fit in because that's what was told to me as to why we were moving. And I felt like, well, this is my last shot. Like if I don't fit in here, this is just always going to be my life. I'm just not going to fit in. So I just remember it being very difficult to transition in the seventh and eighth grade because it was just a tough time in my life. And then also trying to learn the vernacular, people talking different. And I know like, up north, faster and we say finna. And down here, people were like, gone. You gonna go to the store, you gonna do this. Everyone was saying y'all. I actually had no idea like what living in Texas was like. I remember when I left my school in Illinois, they were like, "Are you gonna have a horse?" My dumb butt was like, "Am I? Am I?" They were like, "You gonna ride a horse to school?" I was like, "I might. I don't know." So
That's so funny.
I had no idea. I'm happy that we left because I feel like this is where life was able to flourish for me. But getting it rocking, it was difficult. It was.
It's funny you mention that because when I'm from Detroit, and everybody knows this. And when I was about to move to Texas, I was thinking the same thing. Like, is it like the desert and tumbleweeds and
It is.
horses and stuff? I,
And
I
big
I
belt.
really was thinking
Like
that.
I thought that too. Had no idea. Then I got down here, people was in cars and regular like everybody else.
It is funny though that you will see horses. Like people will have horses over in where we live, South Park,
Hmm.
and would just be just right down the street on the horse. So you do see that kind of stuff, and I think that's even more weird than what we thought before because if you see a horse in a western across the desert, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But you got a Toyota Prius, and then next to it you got a horse with somebody with a cowboy hat on. You're like, that
Yeah,
don't even make sense. But this is
that's
where we
Texas.
are.
Yes.
Wow. Um, okay, so you talked a lot about the transition kind of being the worst. What are some good things that you experienced when you moved from Chicago to Texas or Richmond?
Definitely, like even though I didn't fit in just as far as how I sounded, I did make friends. I made a lot of friends here. And I did have like people have a crush on me. And I just remember being so shocked because, living your life where it's normal, where people just don't like you because it's not even anything they could imagine because you're the black girl at school. And it's like I had people who were friends with me before I moved, but I just remember that just wasn't my reality, like having a crush on somebody and they have a crush on me back. And so when I got here and people liked me, I was like, what's happening? Like I just remember like, okay, keep it cool, keep it cool. Like that's how yeah, exactly. So that was how I felt. I was just so like, oh my God, like somebody likes me. So that was good, like having people who did like me. Also, like I went to Foster in Richmond. So it was like there were other kids there who also like were kind of fluent. So it was I felt like especially once I got to high school, like it's other people here who may not have had my same exact life, but we have all had some shared experiences on what our parents expect, what life looks like for us when we go home. So I did feel like I fit in more. Definitely once I got here. I had a lot of great high school experiences, um, good junior high experiences. I was, you know, I guess what people would say is popular. Like I got asked to prom, like I went to prom 5 times. Got asked to
Wow.
prom all years of high school and then someone else's another year. So it was just like it was very interesting to come from no one wanted to be around me to like everybody wanted to be around me. And I
Yeah,
think my
like, oh, that's
mom
Gia.
Yeah, I thank my mom for that because she said we need to move, and she was right because I would never have had those experiences where I have like friends and you know people who think I'm funny and all that if I would have stayed in Illinois. It just would have been very difficult. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay, last thing on like this kind of part. Did you ever go back and look at your dad's like highlights? Like, did you ever go like, okay, he was in NFL, but like, was he any good? I'm sure this probably comes later on in life.
um, I haven't really like looked at his highlights since I've been an adult. I do remember specific things. I definitely have like looked at what do they call it, specs. Like it's like
Yeah,
yeah,
like the
okay.
stats.
Yeah, stats. I've looked at stats and stuff of his, and then I just remember specific things that he did, like when it happened, me thinking that's so cool. Like I remember this, my dad was a middle linebacker, but I remember this game where he like made a touchdown. And I'm like, I don't think that's his job. but he got the ball and he got the ball and made a touchdown. I just remember thinking, that is cool. Like my dad, like I don't know, but he doesn't even really watch football, which is funny. So that's why yeah, he coached football for a very long time. I think he was just footballed out, but he pretty much will watch it when it's Super Bowl time, but into the end. But just sitting up watching football all the time, like he coached the whole time. He's always just wanted to be a coach, like since high school. He didn't want to play football, but then they like offered it to him to go to school. He was like, all right. And then they were like, hey, we think you want to go into the draft. And he was like, okay. But he
Sure.
always wanted to go to college to be a high school coach. And that's what he's doing now.
Wow. Wow. Man, I just got out of coaching. It's too much work for me.
Yep.
So speaking of getting out of coaching and what actually brought us together, we are both teachers, which brings us to our second number.
Yes.
And a topic that is very hot right now is as school's starting back up. So that's going to be $90,000. And that is what HISD is paying sophomore English teachers based on the information that we've been given. So I'll ask this question again. Have you thought about kind of jumping ship and seeing what it would be like to teach over there and get paid probably more money than any other teacher in the state of Texas? What do you think?
I thought about it for a hot second, and that was it. And that's mainly because I know with something like that, strings are attached. I don't know if those are strings that I want. I also did hear, and I think on our last conversation, I forgot to say it, that they have to agree to have cameras in their room at all times. And it's like, not that
What?
I feel like teachers are just waiting to do something bad, but it's just like, I think your performance is different when you feel like you're under a microscope, just like your performance in anything would be different if you feel like someone is just like watching you all the time. So I would not want that. I'm good. I'm fine with you popping in my room, whatever. But it's just like a camera just being in my room all the time. No, I'll pass on that. So
It's
no,
weird.
it would be weird to me. That's not worth the 90,000 is
Hmm.
a lot.
I well, they're not paying people 90,000 for what we teach,
No,
so I
they're not.
never I never really thought about it. And once you have your contract and kind of at this time of year, it's almost like you be breaking it. It'd be a whole bunch of red tape and issues.
Yeah,
But I was just like, I'm good, with where I am. And I have too many other things going on, to try to go for a new job in a new place and new people. That can be a huge hassle. So for me, it was always like, nah, I'm good. I'll stay here.
yeah. I just like I'm very comfortable. I like my job. I feel like
Mhm.
I like the content
Wait,
that I
can you say
teach.
that one more time? Can you say that one more time?
I like my job. I like the content that I teach, and I also like the people that I work with. Like, I was thankful, even like with the pandemic, that all of us from different schools started really like talking to each other and working together. Like, I feel like we
Yeah,
have a good community in the district that we work in. So I don't know that I want to leave that because I mean, I'm not struggling with my grass not being green here.
right, right. Who's the worst person? No, I'm just playing. Don't answer that question. Yeah. I think that, okay, so how'd you get into being a teacher? I know you come from a family of educators, so just that's a great story. Go ahead and tell it for us.
That whole story. Okay.
Yeah, that whole story.
So I was a professional makeup artist full time. Okay. I did like after college, I started like picking up random like sub teaching jobs. And during that like year that I was doing that, I taught all the levels of school just to see like where do I want to sub at? Like what's comfortable for me? What do I like? I knew I liked high school. Um, so during that time, I had gone back to Baton Rouge. I went to LSU, go Tigers. Going back to Baton Rouge to visit some friends, and on the way back from there, um, this Expedition hit me, and their car is like flipping through the air. Their truck's flipping through the air. I'm spinning down I-10. And I was so thankful because we had just gotten off that long part of like being over water. We had just gotten back to where it's grass on the sides. And when we stopped, I'm like perpendicular both only, I mean, across only two lanes. And there is an 18 wheeler coming. And I remember thinking like I was like going to die then. Like I truly thought that to myself, like, oh man, like this is it. Cause
This
I'm
is
looking at
it.
the man, yeah, like I shouldn't be able to see all the features on your face, but I was looking at the man who was in the truck and he looked so worried, like he wasn't gonna be able to stop his truck. Like I could just see him and he was like trying his best. And so I just sat there and waited and his truck did stop, but that totaled my car. It made it where I couldn't work for a while because my back was killing me. And makeup just takes a lot because you're standing for a long time, you're leaning for a long time. So my back could not take it. And during that time, my dad was like, what are you going to do? Because, you're driving this car you want to drive, you're doing all this different stuff, but you cannot afford this. Like, what if you would have ended up in the hospital right now? You can't afford that. And I'm like, oh, you're kind of right. And he goes, you need something practical. I was not trying to listen
Hmm.
to him because I felt like I want to be a makeup artist, dad. Like, that's what I want to do. My dad definitely, I remember when I first started my business when I was still in college, it was just hard for him to imagine. My dad is a practical
Right.
person and he like literally asked me like, who do you think is going to pay you to play on their face? And I was like, I think people will pay for
Dang,
stuff.
that's harsh.
Yeah, but he meant it. He was like coming from he
Yeah.
was like, who do you think is it like it like he felt like it was just a hobby. And I was like, I think like people would pay me because they can't do it. Like I can do this. I think people would pay me to do it. And they did. And so that's how I paid for stuff all through college. Like I never was without money. Like that broke college student, that was never me. And also when I went to college, I did not ask my parents for my mom was telling someone the other day, like this is my child and never asked for anything. She stopped asking for stuff in college. I didn't have to. Like I was paying for stuff, doing makeup, all that. So when this wreck happened, I'm without a vehicle. At that point, I was a travel artist. I didn't have anywhere for people to come to. So I traveled to them. Can't get to you because I don't have a car. And now my back is jacked up. So that's when I was like, okay, I've been subbing. This will be the easiest little transition. Let me see. Um, I literally, a lot of people don't know this. I have 6 teaching certifications because yes, because I needed a job like yesterday when this stuff was happening. And every job that I went to, they were like, we just love you. The only thing is you don't have this one certification. I've always been a good tester. So I would literally like schedule the first available test for whatever they told me I need a certification in. Take it that next day or the weekend, come back and be like, hey, I got that certification. And they'd be like, oh, well, we filled the position. And so
Yeah.
before my career even started, I was certified in art, special education. What else?
You can throw that one away. Just throw that one away. Don't nah.
I taught SPED for 5 years before I got where I am, and I hope I never have to return. It was a tough time, but once I got into teaching, I liked it, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it based on what my peers tell me, based on what my kids, like my students, tell me. And it's just fun. Like I like teaching people. I do.
I
Like even when I
agree.
teach adult, I think it's helped me with my business too because I teach makeup classes, but a lot of how I speak to people and how I deliver stuff comes from me teaching high school. I think it's just made me a better communicator, just in general, being a teacher.
What is your I mean, maybe you've kinda answered this part already, but what is your favorite part about teaching? And then what is the hardest part about being a teacher? That could be in the classroom or out of the classroom.
I would say my favorite part about being a teacher is just when I see it like click for a kid, like when I've been talking to them about something or when I told them you can do this. Like these are the steps. I promise if you like just do this, this, and this, it'll just fall into place. When I see that happen for a kid, I just feel really great about it, especially with the content that I teach, teaching professional communications. A lot of these kids get in there and they feel like they can't speak to people, or I don't feel comfortable, or they're not even comfortable like speaking in their own friend groups. Like you notice they just like sit around and listen in their own friend groups. And so getting to the end of the year and the notes that I get from these kids, like, thank you so much. And I've been able to do this, this, and this. And Miss Eason, I got a job because I was able to tell them this. And I was able to talk my boss into a raise. Like, that's when I feel like this has good purpose. I'm doing
Yeah.
good. Like, I'm changing people's lives. Also, just the content that I teach, I really appreciate, because I feel like I was that student in high school who felt like, when am I ever going to use this? Why do I need to know what type of, like, about SIG, and why do I need to know that I'm not ever going to use this? And I feel like I don't know any students that will be able to say that about what I'm teaching them, because you will use this as an adult. You need to know how to give a proper interview, how to fill out a job application. So I like that the content I teach is relevant. What I don't like, you want one thing?
It's your world.
So, um, sometimes it's difficult to me being a teacher, because like I feel like I am a teacher who cares like a lot. I care a lot about my kids, even the ones who are difficult, just because that's what they want to be. Um, Anytime that that's questioned, like my care about kids, it does something to me, because I'm like, you do not know all the stuff that I've done and I'm willing to do for even your child. So that has been something for me. Also the kids who just lack motivation, like they just don't want to try, it just hurts me, because I'm like, what does the rest of life look like for this child? And what turns it on? Or will there be anything that will ever turn it on? Or is this just going to be you for the rest of time? Like, that makes
Yeah.
me sad. That's difficult to see, and it's difficult to sit back and watch, and then sometimes difficult to accept that there's nothing you can do about it. Because a lot of times I think, like, no matter what, if I give effort to something, I can make something shake. Like, that's how I feel about myself. And so it's like when I'm giving that effort and it's really like a kid is like, no, it's just like,
Like,
oh
I
my God,
don't care what kind of tactic you pull out, what kind of
that is,
game, like,
that
it
is
doesn't matter.
hard. That is
Imma tell
hard.
you this very short story, very short. I had this one kid. This was my second time having him, so you know what that means.
Yes.
Every time I saw him, it was all love. Shake my hand, "What up, Mr. Frank? You good?" Blah, blah, blah. It was one point, he was like, "Man, I'm not even gonna hold you up. I'm not doing none of this work. So, I appreciate you coming over here and talking to me, but, like, I don't even want you to waste your breath. I'm not gonna do it." I mean, it was respectful, it was straight to the point, it was just like, "This is what it is." I said, "You at least gonna come to class?" He said, "Yeah, yeah, I'll show up to class." He didn't, but still, every time I saw that kid, whether it was in class or in the hallway, he always shook my hand. It was always all love. So I'm always kind of thinking my relationship with a kid is not based on the grade that they get in class. So like even when you have those kids that like I don't want to do anything, you can still find a way to connect and teach that kid even if it's not the content. Now you're teaching them more about how to be a better person. So, very short story. I love to tell that story just because, like, you're not gonna reach every kid, and
Yeah.
there's gonna be some times where I'd rather the kid had that conversation with me and say, "Hey, like, I'm not doing nothing," so you could just kind of place your attention elsewhere, than for me to keep kinda chipping away and thinking I'm really getting this kid in, but I'm not really making any headway. Now, you can focus your attention when it comes to content on other people, and when you see that kid, it's just, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Like, "You alright?" "You ate last night? You good?"
Yeah.
That kinda thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's definitely been a struggle for me. And then also just the same struggle everyone else has. Like, I feel like teachers need better pay. I really do. I feel like anything that someone does in their life, they learn from a teacher. And it's like if you're a lawyer, someone had to teach you how to do that. If you're a doctor, somebody had to teach you how to do that. It's just like I just don't understand why it's just not the math ain't mathing. But that's it. That's all the things I don't like. Everything else
what
feels all
well,
right.
how would you how would you try to do it? Because you're on the inside, and for me, the argument is, okay, how do you differentiate the good teachers from the bad teachers? and take care of the good teachers. And you can't necessarily fire the bad teachers because you can't really replace them all the time. But, you don't have to give them any extra money. But, again, how do you do that? And also we are in the job that is very replaceable. Like
Mhm.
anybody with a degree can go to alternative certification program, ACP, get certified and become a teacher. So, like, how do you find that wiggle room to be able to pay teachers more? At least pay the good one.
Yeah, I definitely think if I think it should be a combination of things. I think how you're evaluated, how you show up on your campus, because you can tell the teachers who like really give effort to kind of everything they're doing. Like they easy to spot on any campus for me, and so I feel like those things. Um, Also, just how kids are performing in your class. Not everybody, because it's just impossible, but in general, what kids are able to do in your class. I think that all should come into account. Just because it there has to be something that can be done, and it's just like it has to be something that can be done. Um, I don't know. I just feel like there's a discrepancy and it needs to be
Hey,
fixed.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So it's like, speaking of discrepancies and having a hard job, there was a point where we all had to our jobs got exponentially more difficult. And that was during the best time of all of our lives, the pandemic. So how did teaching change? Not just teaching, but how did teaching and life? Because I know you have some great answers here. How did they change for you during the pandemic?
With teaching, it was difficult, but it was definitely like growing me. Just because before the pandemic, I did not use technology. It wasn't that I was against it. I just felt like I don't need to waste my time learning it. So I didn't. So everything I did was on paper. I'm making printouts for everything. Everything was just so cookie cutter. It was no,
Old school.
yes. And that was partially because I was trying to learn new content. Like I just come from being a sped teacher. I'm trying to learn new content and I didn't have the time or the brain space to try that hard. Okay. But during the pandemic, um, that is when technology was like forced on me. And I had all the time in the world to learn new stuff, see new stuff. And so I think that was great because I still use that stuff in my class today. Like my kids don't get papers in my class anymore. Um, and I like that. One, it's easier on me, but I just think it's more fun. Like I feel like if I was a student, how my class looks right now in comparison to how it looked before, I would prefer to be the student in my class right now, just because it's not all the same. Like no days in my class are they like the same thing over and over. So I appreciate that, and I think technology and everything I learned during the pandemic, like in a incubator, pretty much, I was able to just get a lot of growth. Okay, but it was hard. It was very difficult. Just with
A
I
lot of
still feel
ceiling
like we're
fans.
dealing with it. Yeah, I feel like we're still dealing with it, but I feel like during the pandemic, that's when kids stopped giving effort towards their work. And we're still dealing with the residual effects of that. Kids that still won't do their work, don't know how to do their work. And that's because they've been, we've still been bouncing back. It wasn't like just because right when we went back to school, everything is normal again. It wasn't. And so the expectations during the pandemic, they were lower. We were all
In the
collectively
tank.
going through something. Yeah. So taking expectations away and then trying to throw them back on somebody is difficult to do. And that I feel like we just kind of have to transition with these kids because they're not working like they were before the pandemic. They are not.
Mm-mm.
It is is very different. So there were pros and cons with the teaching part. Definitely a lot of pros with just my personal life. As I talked to you about it before, like I definitely started moving more during the pandemic. I started having more intimate relationships with friends, with family. Um, started, doing some of the stuff that I missed, making memories, playing spades. And it was just like, before the pandemic, life had gotten kind of monotonous. Like you just kind of do the same thing all the time. You know what to expect from yourself. You're going to do this on the weekends, and during the weekdays, it's this. During the pandemic, I just felt like all that got washed. There was no normal anymore, but it allowed for a clean slate for me to do things differently. And like before the pandemic, the funny thing is, like, I had quit. I was coaching debate before the pandemic, and I told them right before the pandemic started, this is my last year. My kids had made it to nationals, and at that point, I had a really good relationship with my principal. And he was like, "Why? Like, you're doing so good. Like, the kids did this. They've been to state." And I was like, "Yes." I said, "I'm about to go into my 30s, or I just turned 30. No, I think I was 29 when that was happening." And I told him, like, these prime years of my life, I've spent in gyms on the weekends. I told him I don't date. I am an overachiever, which is why our team is doing what it's doing. But I don't have time for myself between doing this, running a business. Who is going to find me, like, to move on to the next stages of my life? And I said, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 40 and 50 and living the same life. And so I told him I'm quitting so that I'm in prime years. I want to have a good time and do stuff that I want to do. I want to be able to date. I want to be able to find a spouse. And where would they find me now? And he was
At
just
a
like,
debate tournament.
yeah, he was just like, is there anything I could do? And I said, no, I've already made my mind up about this. And he said, thank you for telling me. If you change your mind, let me know. And he was just really good with me telling him I want to date. And that's why I don't want to be at the gym on Saturdays with these kids at tournaments. He was good with that. And so the pandemic happens, and the crazy thing is, like, I had started hanging out. I say hanging out because I didn't realize I was dating him. Like, we was just hanging out. He kept asking me to go places, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Um, but I was hanging out, and then during the pandemic, I feel that was the first time that someone I was dating really got to know me, because I had like a lot of surface relationships. And that's mainly because my guard was up with all the life experiences I had. Like, it was just hard for me. Like, once a guy started asking too many questions, or you want to know too much about me, I would just like withdraw and just slowly, like, not necessarily ghost, but I would just pull back until the interest kind of just dwindles down, and then move on to the next thing and be like, this is a fresh start. This is a new person. And the pandemic forced me to sit down. It forced me to get to know
Yeah.
myself more, allow someone to get to know me, heal some things, because it's just like I had to sit in it. Where before, I was I'm an overachiever, but it's more because it allowed me to not really process or deal with like negativity in my life. So instead, I just like really drive a lot of energy into something that's positive, but that doesn't really help the negative thing go away. It's just that you're not seeing it as much anymore because of all these great things. So the pandemic forced me to sit down. I had no choice. I could not go do makeup because no one was touching each other or going out. So I had to sit in it. Be by myself, be in quiet, not busy myself or my life or my thoughts. And that was hard. But afterwards, I just felt like a brand new person. Like, this, to me, this is the richest version of myself that I've ever been in my life. And it's because of the pandemic.
Wow. So what are some specific things, like 2 or 3 things that you would say 100% change from pre-20 Gia to after 20 Gia?
I think my open mindedness, I was just kind of like, I think I was kind of like just pushing out more of the same all the time during the pandemic because I didn't want to lose my business. I started like teaching online makeup classes, which when I came up with it, I didn't think anybody was going to sign up. I did not. I did so well with these classes because people wanted to be involved in something. And it was just like when we got out of the pandemic, because I'm thinking I'm just going to stop my business for a couple months, let this roll over. And then it was like a year. And then I'm just like, when are we ever going to get back to normal life? When we got out of the pandemic and got to where people were going places again, a lot of my like business friends, they don't even have businesses anymore because they did not think of any way to transition. So I think it definitely helped me to open my mind to possibilities instead of being like, "Oh, I can't do makeup anymore, so let me just take a break on my business." I was like, "What can I do? What can I do? I obviously cannot touch people right now. I cannot put makeup on them. Like, what can I do where this isn't going to die? Because I worked so hard on this for so long." So just being open-minded to possibilities and like daring to do things, I think that came during the pandemic. Because it kind of felt like, how can you fail? Like everything's failing right now. So really anything that you do, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
True.
Yeah. So that um I think I think the pandemic kind of taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to not be okay. Where prior to that, I just feel like I was like all the T's were crossed, I's were dotted all the time, just always presenting a certain way. And after the pandemic, it was just like, this thing is gonna shake how it shakes, and this is what I have to offer. This is what I'm doing right now. Um, and I think lastly, just it made me reevaluate like everything. Like there are friends that I don't have anymore. There are friendships that I now have. There are people that I realized were just kind of like, I don't want to say just taking up space in my life, but the friendship had kind of, mm,
Didn't offer anything else?
yeah, it wasn't offering anything for either of us, but we still hanging out because it's just what we do. But really, we don't really connect in any ways anymore. I think the pandemic washed all of that out, and all that was left was whatever had purpose. And so, yeah, I really do. I feel like everybody who was just kind of, what do they call them? What is non-player characters or whatever, the people in the background on video games that they're not actually, they're just
Yeah,
there, but they don't, you can't like be them. Like I felt like my life had a,
bots,
huh? Well, yeah, people
bots.
who were there, yes, people who were there, but they don't actually do anything. I felt like I had
Listen,
that in my life, and when the pandemic came, it's just like, whoosh, if you're not main character energy, just, and so, and I was thankful for it because there was some relationships that I didn't know where they stood. And then the pandemic like revealed a lot to me. Um, Even like business wise and people that I work with, it was just like things got like really clear, really clear. There was a lot of clarity. My spirituality, like it's just, I don't know. The pandemic to me was more benefit than harm for my
mm,
life. I can't speak for everybody because I know like a lot of us lost people. I lost people, but for my personal life, I felt like it was more
mm.
benefit than harm. Some painful benefit, but it was still more benefit.
NPCs.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the word
It's
we
something
use
they
for that.
call those people that are just like there in the background. They don't do anything. And I had some of those in my
NPCs.
life. Bye.
So, speaking of, you've mentioned it a few times already, and I'm grateful that we are at 43 minutes and that we haven't had any breakdowns.
Good.
Our next number here is $275. This is, I just looked this up and I just Googled most expensive makeup. It's a La Prairie foundation.
Hmm.
I don't know, you probably know what all that stuff is. But I guess how did you get into makeup? And you talked about it in college. And when did you start to realize, like, dang, I'm actually pretty good at this, maybe better than other people, and I can use this as a business?
All right. So my mom is a tomboy. She would not really let me wear makeup when I was like in high school and stuff. And she would always say, "Well, you don't need it." And I don't think she understood that I wanted the makeup, not because I thought I needed it, but I just wanted to like get creative and play with it. She was like, "You don't need makeup." And it would just be plain just because that's how she was. She was like, "We don't need makeup." And that's true. We don't. I'm thankful. But it wasn't about that for me. It wasn't. And I just remember one being in plays in high school and being able to like I remember the first like big lead that I got when I was in high school, I was the Cowardly Lion. I was more excited. about how I was about to make myself look than I was about the role. I was excited, but it was just like, I get to wear prosthetics. Like I'm gonna be putting fur on my face. Like I was so excited about that. And then from there, my mom is like really business minded. And I remember she would be like, you need to sell candy at school. You need to do this, do that. And so I've always been business minded. When it came time for proms, that's when I was like, oh, let me help you do your eyeshadow. Let me do this. Let me do that. And I used to cut hair in high school. I actually was supposed to go to barber school, but when my mom went to sign me up and saw who was in there, she was like, no. And she walked me past the barber school because I was 18. She walked me past the barber school. I think I was 17 when I signed up for cosmetology school. Past the barber school, on down the strip to cosmetology school on Richmond Avenue. And that's how I ended up in cosmetology school. And I was just like, all right. So in college, because I had cosmetology license, I literally was like, what can I do? My mom was like, I don't want you to work. You need to focus, Gia. I don't want you to get a job. Like they're gonna have too many demands. I'm like, all right. But I also felt like I don't like when I like go out of town and you're like, what were you doing in Atlanta? Because she could see every dime she gave me, my dad and mom. So I was like, ugh, I'm not feeling this. Like I don't want to be questioned. I don't want her telling me you're eating out too much. I was like, I don't like this. I never did like that. Like I don't like people keeping tabs. So from there, um, I literally opened up my door for business, my dorm room, and people would know like if they heard like the music and the door was open, you could come in and get services. I was cutting hair, I was relaxing hair, I was coloring hair, I was doing nails, like literally all the stuff that a college student wouldn't be able to afford. They really couldn't afford it then. Now these girls got all kinds of expensive stuff, and I'm like, how are you paying for this in college? How are you gonna
You
pay
don't
for
want to know.
yeah, I'm like, well, how are you? Because college students are known for being broke. Like, how are you? I don't know. But that's how I made money. So when I got to LSU, I applied to work at Mac and I started doing makeup. And then I was like, actually, that's backwards. I started doing makeup because I tried to apply at Mac and they were like, no, you need experience. I'm like, where am I supposed? I thought I was gonna get it here. I thought y'all were gonna give me the experience. So I started like practicing on people to like get better at it. Back then there was no way to like YouTube stuff. Like YouTube wasn't really like a thing. I literally had to learn from just trial and error. So I worked and worked and worked on this, and then finally they hired me at Mac. And then I was like, okay, I'm a makeup artist. Like that's what I was telling people. And I started taking clients when I was in Baton Rouge. When I look back on that makeup, I'm like, why are they paying me for this? But I have to keep in mind at that time, my makeup was better. Like people weren't wearing makeup. Like now everybody wears makeup. Everybody wants to be like an Instagram model or the Real Housewives. Like normal people are wearing makeup all the time. That was not the case back then. Like you would only be wearing makeup if you're going to an event. So it was like I was able to build a business. When I got here after college, I thought I was gonna go work, like continue working at Mac and just transfer over to the gallery out here. And something in me was just like, I don't really want to work for anybody. Like I felt like I could swing this on my own. And I remember like one of the main things was I remember when I worked myself up and I got a lot of skills working at Mac, these people had come in and they wanted me to do their wedding. And I'm like, this is great. Like this is a lot of people at one time. This is gonna be like a good um like money opportunity for me. And it was a day when I was on the schedule at Mac. That's when their wedding was gonna be. And I remember asking my manager, like, hey, what can we do about this? Can we switch the schedule? And she told me to recommend one of my coworkers to do the wedding. And I'm like, do what? And she told me, well, you have to work that day. You can recommend one of your coworkers. And when she said that to me, it just like it clicked. You don't need to be working for anybody. So when I moved here, I got all my little money together. I did research on like how do you start, like how do you get an LLC? What are the steps? Really, I didn't know I had to get an LLC. I researched all of the different types of businesses, like just a DBA, a LLC, like everything to see what would be best for what I was trying to do, even though I didn't really know what I was trying to do. That's when my dad was telling me, this is not practical. Who do you think is going to play on your face? Because he's like, why are you wasting money getting an LLC? And I was like, I think somebody will. I paid for it when I didn't really have much money. This is like at the same time I was teaching. I had just started teaching, got an LLC. And then from there, I just started telling people I'm a makeup artist. I was posting stuff online, posting stuff on my Instagram, getting a lot of referrals through word of mouth. And now we're, 16 years later. And I've done weddings, I've worked with celebrities, and that is how I got started doing makeup. Just one, seeing that I could do something that other people couldn't do. I have like a passion for it. I like creating stuff. I paint and stuff just in normal life. So it was just like painting on a different canvas. Like it's a new person, there's more challenges to it. And then it's like people are gonna pay me for something I really like doing. Like there were times in my life I did makeup for free, and times in my life I was charging like $20 a face compared to now where I don't charge $20. But it was like to be that girl who's now doing makeup on celebrities, who's now getting booked for weddings, like not this past November, but the November before. Yeah, the November before that, I got booked for a wedding with 29 people. And it's like that day I had three makeup artists working under me, two assistants working under me. And it was just like, I just remember thinking to myself, this is the girl who wasn't allowed to wear makeup, who was just, doing something out of her dorm room, even though people are like, girl, what are you doing? Who was into makeup when nobody else was into makeup, who taught myself
Yeah.
because there was no YouTube for me to just become a professional off a screen. And look at this. Like you about to like pay people. You, people have come in to work under you. Like that was just crazy to me. I remember thinking that to myself, like, this is wild. And when I was passing people their checks and stuff, it's like, you're in a position where you're paying people. This is crazy.
Yeah,
Like that was just the best day for me.
man, that's a great story. And I think it's the perfect place to get into our three whats because part of what we all do, and I was talking to, I don't know, I talked to a lot of people. I was talking to somebody about typically as we get older, there comes a point where we want to give back. For some people it happens at a younger age. Like some people already in their 20s are already like, okay, how can I help the next person? And some people is afterwards, after they've kind of done their career number one, and then retire from career number two. And like, okay, what's next? Okay, leave a legacy. That's typically how it's stated. So with these three whats, I'm kind of gonna start with the last one first because it makes sense. What advice would you give to someone in high school? And so like you do this all the time anyway. So, what's one of the things you tell your kids the most?
I think definitely just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean that it cannot be done. Because I think a lot of what I've done throughout my life, the challenge was that I did not have I didn't have examples. I did not know other
Right.
makeup artists. I didn't know people who were doing the things that I was like imagining. And so it was like there was no blueprint for it. There was no way to, oh, this person did it this step and then this step. And so be okay if you have to be the blueprint. Like it might sting a little bit and you might have to get over some bumps, but you might be the person who's working out all those bumps for the next people to think, oh, I can do this thing now. Like this is a brand new job that
Yeah.
you've created. So don't be discouraged because it hasn't been done before. Like if your mind is taking you places other people's minds don't, sometimes that's a sign that you have a passion, one, and that there is like a road that you can take to get some
Right.
places that you want to be. So definitely don't be afraid if you are the blueprint.
That's so good. You are the blueprint. That sounds like something. I don't know
It's
yet,
gonna be
but
a
it sounds
t-shirt.
like something. Okay. What number two? What's an opinion that you have that would be considered unpopular?
I think my unpopular opinion is that missed opportunities don't exist. I think a lot the society we live in will tell you like if you're not ready, you gotta like stay ready to get ready. If you're not ready, you're gonna miss an opportunity. I don't believe in that. I think no matter what, whatever you're supposed to have, you're going to have, whether you're prepared or not. Because and the reason I say that is because I feel like there were a lot of times like I was really, really prepared for stuff and I just couldn't make it shake. And then there were times where I felt like, "Ooh, they're asking me to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. How am I going to do this?" And then I was still able to get it done, like completely ill prepared, and it still worked out. I feel like the stuff that doesn't happen for you is because it wasn't supposed to happen for you either then or at all. But the whole you missed the opportunity, a lot of us like sit in those thoughts or we play back stuff in our head. It could be with jobs, it could be with relationships, but there is no such thing as a missed opportunity. It's not. If something's supposed to happen for you, it will happen. It may not happen when you want it to or come in the way that you thought it would. But if it's supposed to happen for you, it will. And if it's not, it won't. But there's no like, oh, you don't have control over your opportunities. Nothing is missing you. Like it's not. So I think that that's an unpopular opinion because I've heard that my whole life. Like you don't want to miss an opportunity. You don't want to miss a blessing. There's no blessings out there that are meant for me that could possibly miss me. So that's
That's
unpopular. I
so
know it
good.
is. That's how I feel.
I like it. I like it. Okay. Last what? If you weren't, no, rephrase. If you could not be a teacher or a makeup artist, started from scratch, kind of still knowing what you know now, right? If you had to completely pivot into a different industry, what would you do? I know that look.
Um, I think I would either be a plus size model or an entertainer. Those are things that I like to do. I think when I was younger, like plus size modeling was not really a thing like it is now. Um, I've always been like not always. I was taught to be a confident person, and then it became a reality later. Like I remember my mom like forcing certain things on me, and it felt really uncomfortable. Like she used to tell me like, hold your shoulders back, don't hold your head down when you're going in rooms, all the different stuff. And I didn't realize that she was building like what looked confident. And then later on, people were like, you always got your head up, you always. And I realized, oh, like people like, am I confident? But it was taught to me. Like before I really like felt like it was just taught to me. Um, I think modeling and then also just an entertainer. Like I sing, I act. I did that all through college. People think I'm funny. I've thought about doing stand up a couple times, but those are the things that I would do.
Okay, we're gonna talk about this then. We're gonna talk about this later. Okay. Um, wait, I think that was my three what? I
Yeah.
went out of order, so I was kind of confused. It's all good. Okay, last part. People want to find you. Okay, maybe they want makeup, maybe they want to find your makeup videos. Okay, you can go as far as you want with this. How do they find Gia Eason?
Okay. So on Instagram, you can follow me at Glam It All. That is the name of my business. It's also an acronym for my name, Gia, Gia. So yeah, my business name is Glam It All. And my business website is www.justglamitall.com. So if you want to book any services or anything like that, that is where you can find me. And on TikTok, Gia Antoinette.
Okay, Gia, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for interviewing me. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, this was a great treat. We'll be able to share with all of our ProfCon buddies, and we'll see who comes on next.
Yeah, it was fun. It definitely was.
So make sure you guys go follow Gia. Go to justglamitall.com. That's the website. Glamidall on IG. There you go, Instagram. The TikTok, Gia Antoinette. Can't believe I remembered all of that.
Yeah,
And make sure y'all go follow me. Numbers Podcast.